Let's go, girls. Welcome to Talk Wealthy to Me. I'm Michelle Taylor, founder of Women in Wealth. From breaking money myths to building wealth and achieving financial freedom, we're here to empower you to create your own path. Talk Wealthy. Now, join the conversation and let's change the way women think and feel about money. Okay, ready? Kimberly Mitchell is a mental health advocate, veteran, and transformational leader dedicated to empowering individuals and small business owners. Kimberly pursued a career in training and leadership development, working across multiple industries from technology rollouts to government initiatives. She played a pivotal role in the 2010 Census Project, leading the development of training materials for the first ever digital data collection. Her work with the Rochester School's modernization program led to the creation of an innovative small business training initiative, impacting local entrepreneurs and serving as a model for other municipalities. Simultaneously, she explored entrepreneurship, running event planning and photo booth businesses before pivoting to a thriving six-figure training business. She has truly done it all. Despite professional success, Kimberly faced personal challenges that led to a transformative self-discovery journey. Seeking answers through the VA health system, she was diagnosed with mild depression, which became the catalyst for developing the Journey to Joy personal transformation system. This breakthrough allowed her to reclaim her happiness, reinforcing her belief that joy is a powerful force for change. Now she dedicates her time to helping others break free from limiting beliefs and external dependencies, ensuring they recognize their own potential. A founding member of Greater Rochester Black Business Alliance and an active board member of ROCEDC, Kimberly is deeply committed to community development. She believes that self-sufficiency and joy are the keys to transformation, a message she amplifies through her training programs, mentorship, and advocacy. Her personal mission remains simple yet profound: to make a positive impact on people she may meet. Hi, ladies. So I feel like I say this every time that I'm so excited for this episode, but I mean it every time. And today is no different. So I am being joined by Kimberly Mitchell, and she, I will tell you, is always, for anybody that's listening and not watching, she's always the best dressed woman in the room. She's always just a treat. Lovely. But other than that, I will let her do the honors of telling you about who she is and what she does. So, Kimberly, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michelle. It's wonderful being here. I'm very happy we connected. I am Kimberly Mitchell, owner of Ujuzi, a training company, creator of the Ignite brand, author of Hello Beautiful, the Mirror Method, and inventor of Anthem, the bra. So I dabble in a little of this and a little of that. I like to say I look for places where there's a gap, and then I create what should be in that gap. And I've been in the training industry for over 30 years. I am a military veteran of the Air Force and the Army Guard. And I like to, and I'm enjoying this time in history where we have technology that is really breaking down the walls, what small businesses can do.
So there's an hour and a half of things to talk about right there. I told you guys, this is going to be so much fun. Wow. Well, first, thank you so much for your service. That matters to me, and I know everybody listening. Where do you want to start? I mean, I love talking to entrepreneurs because I think that we all have that capability of being a little bit, I don't want to say crazy because that's not the right word, but just big vision people. And you have succeeded in so many different facets of business. Why don't I let you start with your favorite in the moment, and we'll just walk down the list. Where did you start? What was your first venture? And tell us about the journey.
Okay, thank you. My first venture was an events business. And it really was one of those where I started it because other people told me I should start it. And I thought, "Oh, having a business.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly." So I'm working full time and I'm running the business on the side. And then, of course, life happens and I got laid off. And I said, "No problem. Now I can just work full time in my business." Except that's when I discovered it really wasn't a business. It was a hobby. And I was not anywhere prepared at all to run it as a full-time business. So I had to start from scratch, really dig in and find out what it meant to run a business. And through that process, I discovered that was not my passion
Hmm.
in the least. So during COVID, I had the opportunity to pivot and I let that business go, kicked into my training business, which is my true passion. And it's been going ever since.
You said something a moment ago, and it is so very true for so many entrepreneurs. And I think that that's the key to it all, right? Is looking what's out there. You don't need to invent the next post-it note, right? Something that's totally new, but looking at things you already use or know about and thinking about the things or problems that you encounter as a user, and then reverse engineering that and figuring out how to do it better. And it sounds like you've done that in many different industries, which I think is really interesting. What led you to this path of entrepreneurship? And I want to hear more about all of the businesses, obviously, but were you always envisioning yourself as an entrepreneur or a business owner? Or, as a young girl, I have people come on and they'll say, well, I sold necklaces or I had a lemonade stand. I always had that. Did you have that pull from a young age that you can remember? Or did this just come from suggestions from others that made it sound really probably more glamorous than it is?
It's definitely sounded more glamorous. But I will tell you that working in the training industry, I was at large corporations just getting into the technology piece. And when I returned, I was living in Phoenix and I came back to Rochester and was working at a startup. And that's really where the bug bit me, that I was really seeing what it's like to build something from the ground up and fill a gap that was a needed gap. And working with these folks, we talk about, and we'll talk about money and the stories we tell ourselves, but even around business, the stories we tell ourselves. And I had told myself back then, this was 1998, and I'm thinking, this is really nice, really exciting. I wish I could do that. And then the more I worked with these people, I'm saying, why can't I do it?
I love it.
Because I know I'm at the table the same way they're at the table and I can contribute the same way. So that's when I really started to say, maybe I really can do it on my own.
Okay, I want to come back to that because I think the support system that we have when we start out in this entrepreneurship world is so important. But on this show and in so much of the work that I do, I love to make sure that everybody really understands. And, I've had people on before that talk about being a part of a startup. But for those that are listening that may not know exactly what that means, can you give us a 30-second explanation, like we all have crayons in our backpack? I like to say it that way. Just of what that means to be working for a startup and what the hope is there.
Absolutely. This was a company that was starting from the ground up, meaning they had an idea they were testing out, and this was some significant technology. And the whole company was mobile or remote before remote was a thing because they couldn't afford to have an office with people and things. And watching it go from that idea, that concept, testing it out, iterating the technology, iterating the software, starting to really get some steam behind it. One of the benefits of that environment is that you get to wear many different hats. You get to really stretch and see what your capabilities are, what your skills are, what your interests are. And so I stayed there for 4 years. And through that 4 years, they went from that single office with piles of computer parts on the table to an actual office building with a product that the municipalities were buying. So it was a really exciting environment to watch all of that process happen.
It really is. And I always envision, I'm trying to think of a movie kind of like, and I know this is kind of a bad example because of the quality of the person, but think of like Wolf of Wall Street. So if any of you listening have seen that movie, how they started off, he was meeting people in a diner, and then he was in a small little office, and before you know it, it was a high rise. When you're part of a startup, it is really just all hands on deck. So like Kimberly said, you may be the IT guy and the customer service and the janitor, but you're bootstrapping a lot. And a lot of times these startups, the big finish line isn't just to have a big office. It's to build something so significant that you're bringing on, equity partners or selling for something so much bigger than where you started. So to be a part of that as a naturally curious person in the entrepreneurship space had to have been really exciting. And okay, so that was IT, but now your real passion, you said, is around what you're doing now with all of the, training. Tell us what that means. Who is your ideal client?
Well, I do training for early stage entrepreneurs because that is a passion. But I'm the creator of the Ignite products, and the Ignite products are specifically for Gen X women who really need to reunite with their she. And what I mean by that is when we are coming up as young women, we have this version of ourselves that believes in all the possibilities. We can take on the world. There are no limits. I can do whatever I want to do. And then over time, we make choices that really separate us from that woman, that version of us. And then we get to this point where we're 40, we're 50, and we're empty nesters, or we're having a career transition or caregiver responsibilities. And we're saying, wow, is this really it? Is
Where'd
this
she
all
go?
of this? Right.
Yeah.
But, you can reunite with her. And that's what we work on, all of these processes. And it comes down to belief. And it's the same with money. All of that, as we talk about the money story, it's really a money identity because we adopt this thing that we don't even question. Sometimes it's planted when we're younger. Sometimes it changes through experiences in
Yep.
young adulthood. And it becomes automatic to the point where we just start going, wait a minute, what is this?
Even the idea
How
of
do-
who you're dating, if it's a time in your life and you're exposed to something that feels foreign, good or bad, it can shape the trajectory of what that looks like moving forward. It's a
Absolutely. Because it
wow.
installs a belief that you don't recognize is in there, because all of the choices that we make are based on the beliefs that we have. Those beliefs we have about ourselves, the beliefs we have about the world around us, our beliefs about money, they are all layered in there. And I'll just give you this quick example that my father died very suddenly when I was 15. And prior to that, I was ready. I wasn't quite sure which career path I was on, but I said, I'm about to make piles of money.
Yeah.
That was just, all the visions of the house and the car. When he died, I lost my respect for money. I told myself that I lost my respect for money because all the money in the world wouldn't bring him back. And so over the years, I continued with that and poor money choices, poor financial habits. And that's the little story that I ran to myself, says, you lost respect for money because your father died. And it's like, well, but he's always going to be dead now. There's no scenario where he's not going to be dead. So are you going to continue with these habits? And I had to really go through this process that's in my system about excavating those beliefs and changing them because they don't suit me. And I have this phrase that's on my wall now that says, money is power, not powder. So stop blowing it.
Oh, I love that. Well, and I talk about that all the time where things can happen to you and you take that and put it in your backpack. And we have to always, or your purse, whichever. And as you're walking, you have to think, what am I carrying that I don't want, that isn't serving me? But now we have to dig into this. Tell me, what was it like? So I know, and I'm sorry, obviously, I know how hard it is to lose a parent. I lost my dad about 7 months ago. And to me, he was very similar growing up. How was your relationship with money with him there? So obviously, I respect and understand firsthand about, no money in the world would bring him back, which I think is a whole other topic, right? About really health is wealth. But also, did you feel like things were really stable when he was alive and then maybe after he passed, it wasn't so stable? Did your, mom have more of a scarcity mindset? Take us back to even, 5-year-old Kimberly. What was that like? What was money conversation like in your house?
Absolutely. Because, after that first excavation, you realize there's sometimes
Many
more than
levels.
one.
Yep.
So my mom was very resourceful with her funds, but we didn't have very much money at all. And we never talked about money in the household. So the fact that there were periods of time where you hear money doesn't grow on trees, we can't afford it, these things are installing things in your mind. And that's where I kind of was saying, well, we have everything but money. So I'm going to grow up and make a whole bunch of money. And then that happened, and that was no longer a goal. But then as I became aware of that type of belief, I also realized that through my mom's her rearing of us from a money perspective, although she never sat us down and talked about money, she had things that she would say about wealthy people, that they're not happy, they're greedy, they're bad. And I didn't realize that I was installing these in myself and therefore putting a cap
And it's
on what I would
and
earn.
it's so wild, right? Because she felt that way because somebody instilled it in her. And then you would pass it to generation. And that's what I want everyone listening to take away every single episode. Listen, my goal is that we all feel comfortable raising our hand and saying, yes, of course I want to be wealthy, whatever wealth looks like. Because for, some people that may mean just being able to be home every day at 3:00 and your kids go on vacations and it's fine. For someone, it might be, I've always wanted a Ferrari or something really amazing. And maybe that to them is it. And whatever it is okay. And I think that as women, we do that where we say, I don't want to say the quiet part out loud, that yes, of course I want to be wealthy. Of course we all do, because so many people say all the time, it immediately is like, well, why? You're greedy, give it away. Or, well, you have enough, leave for others. And we have to let ourselves off the hook, because what we are taught about others and their relationship and how they treat money cannot belong to us. It has to stay with those people. And I know I've said this to you guys so many times, but one of the best things that anyone ever said to me, one of my best friends, who is one of my business partners, said, money does not change people. It acts as a magnifying glass. So you put money in the hands of good people and they're going to do good with it. So those one-off situations where somebody with money that may not be a good person can shape somebody's trajectory or beliefs about what wealth means for generations, it is mind-boggling.
It is.
So I love that
It is.
you say that. Yeah, money wanting to be successful doesn't mean you're greedy or a bad person or selfish or unhappy, because let's get real. Money doesn't buy happiness, but it makes life so much easier. It does buy options, and that
Definitely does.
is worth its weight in gold.
It does. I say money is neutral, but the belief that you have about your relationship with money is where all the emotion is stored. And until you really peel that back and excavate where those beliefs came from, and are they still true? That's really the test. Once you recognize that belief, is it true? Is it true that everybody with money is bad and greedy? No, it's not. So you remove all of that emotion and all that negativity around it, because you recognize that, especially as women, we have that concept. You said enough. We have enough. I don't ever hear men say that. I don't
No.
ever hear men cap their ambition based on what dollar amount they've achieved. And I say, even if you have money flowing out of your purse and falling out of your pocket, if you still want more, go get it. Go get it, because you're going to do well with that.
Absolutely, 100%. And the little words that we say, I was just thinking when you were talking, even things that I've had to adjust with my own kids when we say our prayers at night, saying, thank you for giving us more than we need. And then I realized what I was saying, and it's, no, thank you for giving us everything that we need. It's
Mhm.
those little things so that your kids don't keep carrying that thing in their backpack. So, okay, how did you do it? So you wanted to start a business and you've started more than one. Financially, were there any considerations or things that you felt either set you up for a win, or looking back, you think, holy hell, that was the worst financial decision, and that business may have done well if I hadn't done this thing?
Well, I'll tell you that the real change was that identity, that money identity, to say, who am I in terms of my net worth? Meaning, I had to step into a place where I believed I was the kind of woman that could have $1 million business, a business that makes more than $1 million. Once I broke from that, because prior to that, I was really small. I'm a small business. I have a small business. I'm a small business. Why? Your business can be as big as you want it to be. And that's where I started to examine those things and challenge those beliefs, and then change it to say, this business is growing. This business is a whole disruptor of an industry. I mean, creating a new bra that is completely different than what's out there. It's just like, yeah, you can do that.
You can do
And
it.
the amount of revenue you can generate from that, that's like more than you've ever thought you could ever have. And it's okay. It doesn't upset my nervous system to think that anymore, because I changed what I believed I could make.
And I'm glad that you said that, because even myself, you see these big, massive companies and success stories, and you think, okay, but I'm too late for that. And we're not too late for that. Again, it's identifying what you want and going after it. But I love right now, for all of the bad that social media can give, it also gives a lot of good. And there's a meme that I see a lot being in this space talking about the average age that a woman becomes an entrepreneur, or the age of women when their big idea blows the top off this thing. And, we have plenty of time. You can do anything you want to do.
You talked about the Wolf of Wall Street. One of the other favorites is the story of Dave Kroc. I think it's called The Founder, with Michael Keaton.
Oh,
He was
yeah.
like 58 or 55 or 58 when he first really started that. And watching that whole struggle is just amazing. And it's like, why not you?
That's right. And I think the biggest thing that I hope everyone can identify is, why are you chasing it? Because sometimes that level of success may not be anything that motivates you. So don't chase it and say, well, I'm never going to get there. Well, you're not. Whether you believe you are or you aren't, you are correct. So if you find something that means something to you, you're going to do it. And I think that that's the big thing to remember. And we have to back up because you have to talk about the bra. How in the world did that whole journey start?
Oh, it started over 20 years ago. I just got tired of lugging these things the wrong way. I'm saying, how much sense does it make? Gravity is pulling this way, and we're trying to reach over our shoulders and lift it up, and it just doesn't work. And I kept saying, I wish someone would create a better bra. I wish somebody would make a better bra. And then all of a sudden, it's like, why don't you do it? But 20 years ago, I still was carrying a lot of identities that didn't match what I really wanted to do. So I was looking for other people and looking for other people. And finally, probably last year or year before last, I said, let's really do this. We're going to make this our do or don't year. We're going to put it all on the table, see what we can put together. And listen, if it works, great. If it doesn't, we can move on and save that energy for something else. But I think it's really going to be something we all need, because the first thing you want to know is it's strapless, meaning when you support it correctly, you don't need these things over your shoulders, digging in, trying to heave yourself up. So yeah, I'm very excited. And all the sizes, that whole crazy sizing system, there's just going to be 3 sizes.
Oh my
So
goodness.
look for that. Probably the goal is first quarter next year to really get that out in the market and tested.
So was that your first business where you developed a true product?
Yes.
So I have done that myself, and I know how tricky it is. Where did you start? For anybody that's listening that may have this big idea, you think about this bra, you know that, 1 out of every 2 humans on the planet would be a potential client, but also understand the pain points. Now, how do you create it? What was your very first step?
I had been sketching this thing, and I knew what I needed it to do. I just didn't know how. I didn't know the engineering, the physics, and I was reaching out to different people. And, when you have something like a bra that has been around for ages, people can only think in terms of what exists. So people were giving me ideas that just iterated on what was already there. And honestly, it was through AI that allowed me to really flesh out the ideas and get the material and the concept to be able to say, this is what I'm trying to get to. And now I can speak to people and speak to material engineers and speak to people that have the knowledge and the background and say, this is what I'm trying to create. And it was so amazing to get sketches and finally see the thing in person, so to speak.
How did you decide who to use to manufacture this?
I haven't picked a manufacturer yet,
Okay.
but through sites like Upwork were very helpful in getting resources in terms of the people to give me the specifications that I was after, and really look at what I was saying and say, does this work? Does that work? Is this going to be what I needed to be? And they could give me those tweaks and things that I needed to finish it off. So again, I don't think 20 years ago I would have been able to do it this way. And the technology has evolved to the point that I was able to bring it to life.
Wow. Well, I'm really excited to see all of this come to fruition, being an industry disruptor.
Yes. And if you want to be a beta tester, let me know.
Okay, ladies, anybody listening out there, if you want to be a beta tester, I'll get you in touch. That's so much fun.
Absolutely.
I love that. When I was developing my first product, that's what I did. I went to social media and asked who wanted to help. And it's fun to feel like something is being created and you're a part of it. So,
Think of the power of social media and the ability to speak to people all over the world that we would not have had 10, 15 years ago.
what do you think 15-year-old Kimberly or even 20-year-old Kimberly would say to you right now? Where would she be the most proud about what you've built in your relationship with money and where you are today?
Oh, let me think. 20-year-old. Where was I 20 years ago? 20-year-old. Wow, 20-year-old me was still in the Air Force making like $10,000 a year. Um, and that version of me, that is my she, that she still believed that there was no limit to what we could do. So she would be saying to me, thank you for not giving up. Thank you for not putting your ideas in a closet in a box and packing them away. Thank you for realizing that you're never too old and it's never too late.
I like that version. I really like this version too. And I think that everybody listening would say the same. Where, as we kind of wrap up this conversation, where can people follow along on your journey and learn more about the many businesses that you have and become one of your biggest cheerleaders?
Yay. Well, fantastic. The best place to reach me is kimm.co, the website. I'm on socials at KIMMDOTCO. And reach out. I have a free ebook to help you really excavate those beliefs. There are tools available really to talk about getting in there and changing your life, because as women, we hit that age where we're not so sure we have what it takes, but you do. I promise you, you do.
She's in there. She's in there and she's just tapping you on the shoulder, waiting for you to pay attention and remember, right?
That's right.
Well, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me and the audience. Stories like yours give all of us the motivation and reminder that we don't have to keep doing what doesn't serve us, to go after that version of life and our story that we want to write without any guilt. And there's amazing people out there that want to help. And you are a perfect example of a great resource. So keep doing all of the great work that you're doing. And for all of you listening, as always, thank you for spending time with me today. And let's keep changing the way women think and feel about money together.